Hey, Shawnee Football here. We got some exciting Week 3 matchups, so let's get into them and make some game picks. Yeah, so the way I want to do this is going to go over the money lines, the over-unders, and the spread. For most of the games, I'll definitely have the money line and then sort of just tell you how I feel about the spread and the over-unders. The money line is the straight-up winner who wins the game. The spread is how much they're supposed to technically win by, or how many points that they're given, and the over-under is the total points for each team, for both teams combined, and the total points in the game. So kicking things off, we had on Thursday Night Football the New York Giants versus the San Francisco 49ers. This was in Santa Clara. The 49ers were the favorites in the game. They had a 10.5 point spread and the over-under was 44. This is a little bit late coming, but I personally liked the 49ers in the money line. Probably would have avoided the spread even though they did cover, and probably would have avoided the total points as well. Mostly just because I do not have or didn't have that much confidence in the Giants offense. Moving on to Sunday's slate. Sunday we've got a lot of fun games, kicking things off with the Indianapolis Colts at the Baltimore Ravens. I like the Ravens in this game for the winners. The spread is -8. I think that they should be able to cover that. Anthony Richardson, the rookie quarterback for the Colts, is out along with some of their offensive linemen. So expect Gardner Minshew to have a lot of short and intermediate passes, but not really an explosive game. I think the Ravens win. They should be able to cover, and I actually think I like the over of 45. But again, the only bet of these three that I would be touching is the money line, and maybe parlay that with some other picks. So I like the Ravens. We'll say 27-20. So based off that, I have the over and I have the Colts covering. Moving on to the Titans at the Browns. I actually like the Browns. They are actually the favorite with -3.5 points. They are the home team, so that's probably why most home teams usually do get about 3 points for free, just with home team advantage. Home field advantage. The over-under is set at 39.5. I like the over at this, but at the same time, both of these offenses have not been super exciting so far, so we will see how things turn out. Not a game that I'm probably going to tune into too much, but I'll have it on and watch the red zone highlights. But I like the Browns at home, 24-17. That hits the over, and that hits the Browns covering, and that's the Browns winning. So take that as you will. 1, 2, 3, Browns sweep. Then next we have on Sunday at 1 o'clock in Ford Field, the Atlanta Falcons, the 2-0 Atlanta Falcons, are visiting the Detroit Lions, the 1-1 Detroit Lions, who had a heartbreaking loss against the Seahawks last week after an incredible win against the Chiefs in the season opener. I think the Lions are the favorite in this game. They are favored by -3. I would take the Lions for the money line. I would take the Lions for the spread, and I'm going to avoid this over-under set at 46. I think that sets pretty perfectly. So I'll say the score is going to be 27-20. So I guess just over, but I would be avoiding the points in that game. Moving on to the New Orleans Saints versus the Green Bay Packers, and this was actually one of the tougher games, I think, to decide. I think that this is sort of a bit of a toss-up. It's in Lambeau Field, so I want to give the benefit of the doubt to the Packers as far as the money line. The spread is -2 for the Packers, so not really heavy. If anything, I'd say that the Saints are almost a road favorite since they're only being given 2 points. And the over-under is set at 42.5. I actually do like the over in this game. I think that when two teams that are sort of similar level playing time, as far as level of competition and where they're at in the season, I like the Packers. I think they're a little bit more promising with Jordan Love and the young receivers on offense, and Aaron Jones might be coming back. With the Saints, I know that they lost Jamal Williams. Alvin Kamara should be coming back in about 2 more games, so that'll be nice, but Still sort of feels like they're adjusting to Derek Carr on this offense. Olave has been looking pretty good, but other than that, I really like the Packers more. So I like the Packers in the money line. I like the Packers with the spread, and I like the over. So 1, 2, 3, go to the Packers. Total score or final score, we'll say 26-21. I don't know. I made that up, but I like it. I don't know if that might be a scoregami. Moving on to the Texans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I really like both of these coaches. DeMeco Ryans is one of my favorite coaches, or at least probably my favorite rookie head coach this year, and I love Dougie P. Won the Super Bowl with the Eagles, so I can't knock him. But the Texans and CJ Stroud have actually looked really good, or better than expected so far. CJ Stroud's one of the league leaders in passing yards, and hasn't thrown a turnover yet. Doesn't really have so much talent around him on the Texans in general, and because of that, I am taking the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence has been looking really good in the first 2 weeks of the season. I think he's really going to take another step in his development this season. So I like the Jacksonville Jaguars to win. The spread is at 8.5. I think that's a little much for the Jaguars to cover. So I would avoid that if I were you. And then the over-under is 44, which I would lean a little bit towards the over, but I also like where that is. So we will say the Jags win 30-17. So I guess that's healthy over the over. So I guess take the over based off of that random numbers that I just popped out. And I guess take the Jags on the spread too, because I don't know. I don't know. We'll see how things go. But don't take my score prediction for much in that game. Broncos versus the Miami Dolphins at Hard Rock Stadium at 1 o'clock on CBS. I like the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are the hottest team in the NFL right now, starting off on 2-0. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, the Denver Broncos, led by Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, have been struggling to an 0-2 start. Both of those games were at home too, against winnable opponents. So can they get their first win in Miami this Sunday? I think it's going to be tough. The way Tua's been cooking with their offense. First week they really got things done with the pass game, and then second week they got a lot done with the run game. So they have a pretty nice balanced offensive attack, the Dolphins do. Love Mike McDaniel. So I like the Dolphins to win this in the money line. I like them to cover the spread at 6.5, even though I think that might be a little bit of tough. They can still win by a touchdown. And the over-under is at 48.5. Ultimately, I like the over. I think it's a little high, and I'm curious to see how many points the Broncos can put up, but I'm confident that the Miami Dolphins can put up close to 30 points on any given week. So if the Broncos can do their share and score 20 points, then you have it pretty nice over there. So I like the Dolphins. We're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1. They have a banjo in their theme song, whatever, team fight song. Moving on to the Chargers at the Minnesota Vikings, and this is a battle of the 0-2 teams. Both of these teams are desperate for a win. Minnesota is home this time at 1 o'clock. The Chargers are actually technically the slight dogs just because they're on the road. I like the Chargers to win. I like the Chargers on the money line. I like the Chargers on the spread because the spread is -1 for the Vikings, so I'll take that 1 point for the Chargers. And the over-under is at 54, which feels a little bit high. I feel a little more comfortable at like 50. So I think I'd hammer the under on that. But I like the Chargers to cover and win. So hopefully Justin Herbert can get his first dub of the season. Minnesota's run game has looked putrid so far. They did just trade for Cam Akers, who looked like he needed a change of scenery. I think that him and McVay just were never really on the same page. And he's a talented guy, but I'm also really excited to see what Kyren Williams can do for the Rams. But we'll get to that when we're actually talking about the Rams. I believe they're on Monday Night Football. Anyway, moving on to the New England Patriots at the New York Jets. Another battle, AFC battle, division, gonna be tough. It's gonna be at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey at 1 o'clock. The Jets are the dogs at home, led by Wilson. Maybe he can get his first win as their full-time starter of the season. He did win in relief of Rodgers, and technically, I guess, did get that win considering Rodgers only played 4 plays. But I like the Patriots in this game. I think Mac Jones and Bill Belichick desperately need a win. Otherwise, things could get pretty ugly in New England. So I think they get the win. I think they cover the spread, which is at 2.5. And I also like the over at this game, which is set at 36.5. That seems pretty low. I don't think either of these teams are particularly good. And often when two teams that are not particularly that good face up against each other, they still are able to put up some points, just because they're playing down to the level of competition. So I like the Patriots in that one. Moving on to the Bills at Commanders, FedEx Field at 1 o'clock. I like the Bills in this game, even though the Commanders are off to a hot start with 2-0. I really do like Sam Howell leading the charge for the Commanders, but ultimately I think the Bills are just a more talented roster on offense and defense and will ultimately get the win. Josh Allen will lead his team to victory in Washington. I like the Bills to win. I like the Bills to cover, although I think it'll be closer. It'll be tough for them to win by a touchdown. The spread is at 6.5, or at least it's the current spread that I'm seeing. So I'd maybe avoid that spread. And the over-under is at 43.5. I do like that. I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game. Each team can easily score 20 points. So I like the Bills, let's say 31-24, and that I guess is covering the spread. But I, like I said, don't really love that spread so much. I think that Sam Howell can keep it close. Moving on to the Panthers at the Seahawks, and this is in Seattle. Seahawks are 1-1, and the Panthers are off to an 0-2 start. Frank Reich and Bryce Young are desperate for their first win. Definitely shown some roller coasters, some ups and downs this season, but plenty of things to work on. But ultimately, I think the Seahawks are still the better team. I like Geno Smith leading the Seahawks to victory. They are the favorites in this game, and the spread is at -6.5 for the Seahawks. I think that they can cover that, and the over-under is at 42. I think that can also hit the over. Not too crazy about that over-under, just because the Panthers' offense hasn't been super consistent this year, but I like the Seahawks to score at least 20 points. So I think that they'll at least do their part. So avoid the over-under, but I like the Seahawks in the money line and spread. All right, we got just a couple more games left for Sunday's slate. So moving on to the Cowboys versus the Arizona Cardinals, and the Cardinals have been, somewhat promising and exciting so far. They've played pretty well, even though they started 0-2. Josh Dobbs just got there and has looked pretty good. Although they might just be advertising players to ultimately trade them. The Cowboys look like one of the hottest teams off in the first 2 weeks, coming to a 2-0 start. Their defense is the best in the league so far, although they did just lose Trayvon Diggs out with an ACL for the rest of the season, so that is a big loss to the defense. It'll be interesting to see who assumes that role in his absence. They definitely traded for a couple guys and drafted some young guys, but ultimately they're going to really need Stephon Gilmore to step up on one side of the field and hopefully find a replacement on the other. But I like the Cowboys to win this game. I like the Cowboys. I don't know about the cover. The spread's at 12.5, which is a lot. Asking any team to cover more than 10 points is always a struggle in the NFL. It's any given Sunday, and crazy things happened. So honestly, if you're on upset alert, I think that this has a lot of value on the Cardinals. They're plus 500 to win. So if you want to just throw, maybe $10 or something to win 50, it's not bad. But I think the Cowboys will win. I'm not touching that spread, and the over-under is at 43, which I would also avoid just because I don't know if the Cardinals are really going to show up to play when it's all said and done. Moving on to the Bears versus the Chiefs. Justin Fields has not looked so good so far this season. This is going to be an Arrowhead, so it's going to be a tough environment. I don't think that they get their first win. The Bears are heavy dogs with plus 550 odds, and the Chiefs are minus 13 on the spread. The over-under is at 48. I like the Chiefs to win this game. I don't want to touch that spread. Like I said, anything more than 10 points is something that I just don't want to touch. But if you're a Bears fan, maybe it's your day, and maybe you think that the offense and the pass game are really going to unlock this game. The over-under feels actually pretty good at the over, but I would avoid that and just touch the Chiefs money line in a parlay somehow. Give me the Chiefs 34-20. So I guess we like the over on that. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Las Vegas Raiders at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas at 8:20 p.m. Sunday Night Football. Should be a fun game. Battle of teams that are 1-1. The Steelers have a pretty fun defense, and their offense seems to be going through the motions and figuring things out. Meanwhile, the Raiders, sort of similar thing. Their offense is still sort of figuring things out. They have new pieces. So should be a fun game for Sunday Night Football. Currently, the Raiders are the favorite, but I actually think I would take the Steelers in this one just because I like their defense a little bit more. Raiders are the favorite by minus 2.5 points. So I like the Steelers to cover, I like the Steelers to win, and I'll take the over, which is set at 43. So we'll say the Steelers win 24-20. We have two matchups on Monday Night Football this week. The first one starts at 7:15 between the Philadelphia Eagles and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is at Raymond J. Stadiums in Tampa Bay, Florida. I like the Eagles to win this game. I like the spread is at 5.5. I actually think I might like the Bucs to cover. Baker's been playing really well and got the team off to a 2-0 start along with the Eagles. So pretty fun matchup. Battle of two undefeated teams on Monday Night Football. Only one will remain undefeated. Like I said, I like the Eagles to win. The spread I am avoiding, but I would probably lean more towards the Bucs. And then the over-under, I also think I like the over, but not by much. Literally a slight, like 48 points. They're currently set at 46. So I think the Eagles can win, we'll say 27-24. That sounds right. And last matchup of the week, we have the Los Angeles Rams versus the Cincinnati Bengals. And this is taking place in Cincinnati. I personally like the Cincinnati Bengals to get their first win. I think Joe Burrow is a game time decision right now, but the Bengals are the favorites with the -3. Like I said earlier, -3 at a home team is usually pretty even, but the Bengals need to get their first win of the season. So I like the Bengals to win, I like the Bengals to cover, and I like the over, which is set at 44. I think Bengals win 28-24. And that pretty much wraps up week 3's matchups. Like, follow, and subscribe for more NFL content. Shawnee Football coming at you strong. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Thoughts on any games, any matchups, player props, money lines, parlays that you guys might be placing. And we'll see you next game. Peace. Next week, whatever.